Act, the University of the Philippines Charter of 2008. Before we hear the sponsorship speeches of the authors, let me recall that the three bills were initially deliberated by this committee last May 17, and it was decided that we create a technical working group to consolidate the three bills. However, since we are pressed for time, I'm now elevating the draft substitute bill straight to the mother committee, which is this committee. If the authors and members are amenable, there are no objections. Probably we can hear a motion, but if not, if you have some proposed amendments on the substitute bill, you can state them now as we deliberate on the specific bill mentioned. So you got a copy of the revised or the substitute bill. Any comment on this?
Hi, Rep. Mark.
Yes, yeah, this is the one.
Una sa lahat po, nagpapasalamat tayo sa Committee on Higher Education sa mabilis na pagkakaroon ng isang substitute bill na sumasalamin sa panawagan at pagkakaisa, paninindigan ng UP community, kasama po ng ating mga authors dito sa House of Representatives para ipagtanggol ang esensya ng UP-DND Accord at pagtindig para hindi lamang para sa mga mahalagang probisyon ng accord na to, kundi para sa kalayaang akademiko at sa pagsasakatuparan ng demokratikong karapatan sa loob ng pamantasan ng ating National University, ang buong UP system. Sa paglalayon din na sa mga susunod na pagkakataon at talakayan natin ay pagtibayin rin ang parehong mga probisyon, hindi lamang sa UP, hindi lamang sa PUP na meron ng parehong mga accord, no, kundi sa lahat ng educational institutions. I'd just like to make this short manifestation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Like to bring attention to 2 points in this manifestation. First, on the substitute bill, Mr. Chair, this representation takes issue with Section 11H of the proposed substitute bill entitled Compliance. When the UP-DND Accord was first crafted, this provision was not part of the agreement. While this new addition is very much welcome, we would like to register that this does not suffice in the protection of the academic freedom and civil liberties of stakeholders, since an actual punitive amendment containing a penalty provision. This provision is without consequence nor effect. In this youth representation's opinion, all it does is to pay lip service to the protection of people's rights and welfare. It is more than necessary, it is imperative that we include a provision penalizing violation of the UP-DND Accord. After all, in the minds of the wicked, why respect an accord if there is no material consequence for a violation? Even in international organizations such as the Human Rights Watch and other United Nations bodies have joined in on this discussion. The UN Security Council itself encouraged all member states, and I quote, to take concrete measures to deter such use of schools by armed forces and armed. The Philippine Congress would not be doing something out of the ordinary. It would just be following in the footsteps of other countries who deemed it necessary to protect academic freedom and educational autonomy as a key to further developing the quality of education towards building a better society and future. At least 3 countries, Mr. Chair, Myanmar, Nepal, and Sudan have included commitments to refrain from all military use of schools as part of peace agreements between the government and domestic non-state actors. A number of Latin American countries have laws making university campuses immune from action by government security forces. National police and military units cannot enter the grounds without the university rector's authorization. Such laws are related to student-led movements to reform universities in Latin America, which value universities' autonomy and independence from the state. Further, Bangladesh, India, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Singapore have their respective military maneuvers act, which prohibits entry on certain structures, including schools. Greece as well has provisions barring unauthorized entry by state forces and penalizing such an unauthorized entry. Latin American countries such as Argentina, Colombia, Ecuador, Nicaragua, Peru, and Venezuela have also taken up the cudgels for academic freedom, thus preventing the intervention and inclusion of armed forces without the proper notification of university authorities. Some would even go as far as legislating penal sanctions for the violation of this campus inviolability. In South Sudan, directives themselves come from the heads of armed forces, meting out disciplinary actions and the consideration of such acts as a serious violation of the law. There is also an imposition of disciplinary and adverse administrative action upon violation of laws, rules, or orders relating to the occupation of schools. The USA also has similar measures in the Military Commission Act, Section 950, prohibiting a person from taking advantage of the location of a protected property, of which under the Act, an educational institution is considered as one, with the intent to favor military operations and may be punished as a military commission under the Act may direct. These are the international examples, but lest we be reminded, violations have still occurred despite the existence of the UP-DND Accord. There have been military presence in UP campuses across the system, whether in uniform or in plain clothes, and such presence continue to the present time as what have been shared by the UP State. Thus, Mr. Chair, I would like to propose that we strengthen the section on compliance with the following wording. Section 11H on compliance. Both parties shall exert every effort to ensure compliance with the provisions of this Act. Failure to comply with the provisions of sections 11A to E shall be sanctioned in accordance with the law, which may include but are not limited to provisions on criminal, administrative, and or civil liability without prejudice to one another. Ayun po ang amendment ng representasyon na ito bilang pagtindig natin para sa UP-DND Accord at greater push to enforce accountability among the ranks of our law enforcement agencies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congresswoman Sara. Before we continue, I would like to recognize Representative Maria Teresa Collantes of the 3rd District of Batangas. We have also Representative John Marvin Nieto of the 3rd District of Manila. Yes, any comment from the Mr. From DND?
Attorney Daanoy, sir.
The Attorney Daanoy, yes. Attorney Daanoy, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Nice meeting you again, Mr. Chair. Seeing with your smiling face is very nakapagbigay sa atin ng passionate position as far as the Department of National Defense, Mr. Chair. And also to the honorable distinguished members of the Honorable Committee. Mr. Chair, during the previous hearing, I have apprised the Honorable Committee of the reasons why the DND-UP agreement concerning the conduct of law, the conduct of police and military operations in any campuses was terminated by the Department of National Defense. I have also reported that several UP and PUP students were killed and captured as CPP in PA in several police and military operations.
Attorney Daanoy, are you going to comment on the proposed penalty provision?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'll go into
Yes.
that.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, I wish to manifest for the record that the government has been implementing effectively a whole government approach in ending the local communist armed conflict. The entire government agencies and the LGUs are involved in this effort to end this menace which have been plaguing this country for several decades. Mr. Chair, the government efforts to end this menace is gaining ground, and we are appealing to this honorable committee to support the government strategy in ending this menace. Mr. Chair, we wish to manifest that this is not an issue of academic freedom. I repeat, this is not an issue of academic freedom. UP has all the academic freedom it wants. This is not an issue of freedom of expression. UP can exercise this right and being protected by the Constitution. UP is an autonomous educational institution. We believe that the issue involved here is protection of the students from being recruited by the CPP-NPA. This is the principal consideration of this effort. We have to stop or deny the CPP-NPA from recruiting our students. This is not just a law enforcement. This is a matter of national security, Mr. Chair. The UP is part of the government. We are appealing to the UP administration not to support these bills. Instead, we are appealing to support the government efforts to stop the clandestine recruitment of the CPP-NPA in all UP campuses in line with the whole government approach to end this menace. Mr. Chair, UP has no security mechanisms to protect the students from this clandestine recruitment. Ito lang ang punto ng security agencies ng gobyerno, Mr. Chair, to protect the students and counteract the CPP-NPA recruitment. We want to help UP as a security educational institution. The present bill, Mr. Chair, would not, in effect, solve this menace. With so many surrenderies of CPP-NPA rebels, we believe that the CPP-NPA recruitment will be intensified, targeting the vulnerable sector, the students. We have effectively counteract the recruitment on our indigenous people. Last hearing, Mr. Chair, the security agencies of the government were listening to us. And as in fact, I have officially reported. And their observation is that there is no concern as to the death and capture of CPP-NPA students. Ang punto nila dito, Mr. Chair, hindi na bali mamatay ang estudyante basta tuloy ang recruitment. To stop this recruitment is...
Mr. Danoy, Mr. Danoy, can you just go direct to the proposed amendment on the substitute bill, particularly on the aspect of penalty, because that's the... unless you want to comment on the entire provisions of this bill.
Ang punto namin, Mr. Chair, we are not supporting the entire bill.
Okay, so I think
that is the point. That is the point. We are not supporting the entire bill because there are some legal questions or constitutional questions on that, because the Department of Justice and the Office of the Solicitor General have some reservations on that. Because in our previous cabinet cluster meeting, may mga questions that it would violate the Constitution. That proposed provision of the proposed bill, Mr. Chair.
Can we,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair?
Attorney Danoy, is it possible that you give us a copy of your position paper, among other things, stating that there is a constitutional infirmity as far as some of the provisions of this proposed bill, so that we would know, you know.
I think that would be better, Mr. Chair, that we will submit our position paper.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Congresswoman Franz Castro.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As regard to the amendments on Section 11H on compliance, kasi po on our bill may penalty. Pero yung pong sinabi ni Representative Sara, no? Tingin ko mas okay po ito, no, kasi meron nakalagay dito na yung tungkol dun sa pag-sanction in accordance with the law, which may include but are not limited to provisions of criminal, administrative. So kung sino man po yung mag-violate dito sa batas na ito, so meron po talagang compliance, or meron po talagang penalty under our law na existing na yon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the amendment.
Yes, DS Rufus.
Yeah, well, we have a passionate also stand of the Department of National Defense, and we also would give that to Attorney Daanoy. Mr. Chairman, a mention has been made about some constitutional infirmities. Do we have the Department of Justice present? Because we are going to deal with this now, and we are going to already have a resolution on this particular bill filed by our colleagues. We know, Mr. Chairman, so that we can immediately see their comment on the particular, let us go to the particular allegations of constitutional infirmities in the bills, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Do we have the Department of Justice, Melanie?
No, sir. There is no representative from the DOJ.
Yeah, because that is a strong position of Attorney Daanoy, that if there is constitutional infirmity in some of the provisions of this proposed bill, then that should be brought out today so we can address if there is any, because we don't like that this will be challenged before anybody, like the Supreme Court questioning the constitutionality of this amendment to the Charter of the University of the Philippines.
Mr. Chairman, we are very
Yes,
lucky, Mr. Chairman, that
yes, DS
Professor
Rufus.
Theodore Te, a constitutional law expert, is present. And so we should be able to hear from him. He will have a better interpretation of these particular provisions. May I ask
Yes,
that we recognize Theodore Professor Te?
Yes. Attorney Theodore Te, representing the University of the Philippines, can we hear you on this matter as stated earlier by Attorney Daanoy?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of Congress and members of the committee. First, I would like to state that I am here in my capacity as the representative of UP President Danilo L. Concepcion, who cannot be here because of a Board of Regents meeting. And secondly, Your Honor, just to state the position of UP President Concepcion as regards the substitute bill that is being considered by this committee. The UP President has mentioned to me that he expresses full support for any and all bills that would support, maintain, and advance the institutional autonomy and academic freedom of the University of the Philippines as reflected in RA 9500, which is the UP Charter of 2008. And particularly this particular consolidated House bill, considering in substitution of House Bills 8437, 8514, and 8545, Your Honor. So as a general statement, the UP President supports the consolidated bill, subject perhaps to some observations, Your Honor, on specific provisions. If I may be allowed, Your Honor, to just mention that the substitute bill and the proposed bills, Your Honor, actually incorporate the text of the UP-DND Accord. May we also note that UP also has a counterpart accord similarly worded with the DILG covering the Philippine National Police. So only for purposes, Your Honor, of synchronization, considering that with the establishment of the PNP, law enforcement and police functions, Your Honor, were devolved to the PNP, that perhaps the provisions of the DILG, UP-DILG Accord should also be consolidated, Your Honor, as far as the text is concerned, and harmonized, Your Honor, with the current proposed substitute bill. Secondly, Your Honor, considering that some of the provisions of the UP-DND Accord, Your Honor, were entered into before the UP Charter was passed in 2008 by Congress, there are some terms, Your Honor, that may no longer be applicable, which may need to be contemporized, Your Honor. If I may note, Section 11G of the proposed substitute bill, establishment of a joint monitoring group. This is a verbatim reproduction of the text of the DND Accord. It does not, however, Your Honor, reflect that the UP Charter established the office of the staff regent. And so, therefore, Your Honor, just in order to ensure consistency with the intent of the UP Charter, the the staff regent perhaps should be included, Your Honor, considering that the intent here, the UP faculty regent, the UP student regent, is to provide for representation of the what we internally call the sectoral regents, Your Honor, within the university, considering RA 9500, which created the office of the staff regent. Perhaps, Your Honor, the staff regent should also be included. Secondly, Your Honor, consistent also with Republic Act 9500, which created the system itself, the UP system, with constituent universities, Your Honor, and the intention of the substitute bill, which would ensure not only the autonomy of the UP system, but also its constituent universities, Your Honor, may we also reflect that perhaps part of the monitoring group, because it may only concern, Your Honor, a constituent university and not the entire system, that perhaps the Vice Chancellor for Community Affairs, Your Honor, should also be included in the monitoring group. I mentioned this only, Your Honor, because these are matters that were not covered by the text itself of the DND Accord, but which I would believe would not be inconsistent, Your Honor, with the intention of the sponsors. And if I may be allowed as well to make a second comment, Your Honor, consistent with the general statement, that the section 11F, Your Honor, which is, I believe, a new provision, which is, I think, a welcome provision as well, strengthening of the police and firefighting capabilities of UP. Perhaps it may just be a matter of nomenclature, Your Honor, or wording, and I believe the members of this committee and the members of Congress would perhaps be in a better position to come up with the terms. But I think using the word police, Your Honor, might be a little nebulous, because we do equate police functions, Your Honor, with law enforcement. And this basically would be campus security, Your Honor, where the basic intention really is to be able to maintain internal security of the campus, Your Honor. Certainly, these are not police officers that are being created, Your Honor. And so perhaps maybe I do not have the a suggested word, but maybe just to make that observation that it may be best to consider using another word rather than police, Your Honor, considering that I believe that is also one of the observations being made by the DILG in relation to the UP-DILG Accord. And as a last point, Your Honor, Section 11H, as mentioned by Representative Elago earlier, I believe that perhaps that the intent of the sponsors would be best secured by perhaps providing as well expressly, just so that to avoid any possible confusion with any consequences of non-observance, Your Honor. Again, we would not be in a, I think Congress would be in a better position to come up with the appropriate language for this, Your Honor. But if I may suggest that, considering that this is an amendment to a particular section, that the existing word, the existing phrase, "this act," at the end of the current sentence, "both parties shall exert every effort to ensure compliance with the provisions of this act," perhaps would be best limited to this section, considering that the rest of the UP Charter, Your Honor, is not intended to be a penal or a penal statute. It is a charter of the University of the Philippines. So this is the only intended section, Your Honor, which would have, if ever, any consequences, whether administrative, civil, or penal, Your Honor. And so perhaps just to change the word act, because it may refer too broadly to the entire UP Charter, Your Honor, which I think is not the intention of the sponsors. Maybe this section, Your Honor, would be perhaps more limiting, Your Honor, as far as that is concerned, Your Honor. And as a last point, Your Honor, while I do appreciate the high compliment given to me by my congressman from Cagayan de Oro, Rufus Rodriguez, Your Honor, I am afraid, Your Honor, that I would not be able to comment on the constitutional objections that Attorney Daanoy is thinking of until we are aware of what they are. Of course, as a general principle, Your Honor, we would observe that because the provisions simply restate what had formerly been agreed upon, Your Honor, by no less than a former president of the Philippines, Your Honor, when he was Secretary of National Defense, and as well as Secretary of Interior and Local Government, Your Honor. I would believe, Your Honor, simply because there are reiterations of almost verbatim, Your Honor, of existing provisions, I would believe that there would be no constitutional objections, Your Honor, to these provisions. And since all that the substitute bill and the original bills seek to do is to incorporate the notice requirement, Your Honor, that is the essence of the two accords, Your Honor, I do not believe that there should be any constitutional objection on that point, because that is simply part and parcel, Your Honor, of well, in a sense, Your Honor, due process as far as that is concerned. And it is also part and parcel of ensuring academic freedom and institutional autonomy, which we have been assured by Attorney Daanoy, the DND is fully supportive of, Your Honor. So I hope, Your Honor, that I have been of help to the committee, and should the committee require any further assistance, Your Honor, I would be very willing to help the committee. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Thank you very much, Attorney Te. I think the points that you raised are well taken. Specifically, if I got you right, and I agree with you on particularly adding the UP Staff Regent now being part of the Board of Regents under Section 4G. I think we can incorporate that. And also, as far as the different constituent units are concerned, we can include the Vice Chancellor of on Community Relations. We can include that in Section G. As far as compliance, the compliance provision of this particular bill under Section 11H, I agree with you that this should not include the other provisions of the Charter. It should be limited to the specific provision on this Section 11. And I think these are good points that were raised, and we will definitely take note of all of this and incorporate them in the final substitute bill. Also, as far as the penalty, personally, I have no inclination to include the penal provision in this particular bill, but we can look at the other administrative and other related penalties, but not criminal liability shall be included in this particular provision of the bill. Having said that, Attorney Te, I would appreciate very much if we can get a written position paper of the university, and probably if you can also digress a little bit on the question of constitutional infirmity that was mentioned by Attorney Daanoy. And if there is really constitutional infirmity, but I agree with you that when the bill, when this accord was signed by the former president of the republic, and he was then the Secretary of National Defense, I think I'm sure these have been considered already by these signatories to this accord. Yes, before yes, DS Rufus.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We support your responses to the suggestions of Professor Te. There are just two more that I'd like to also emphasize. Number one, Theodore Te is correct in his concern about the word police. We cannot have the word police in this bill, and we should suggest already to UP to change the UP Campus Police to Campus Security Group, because police has a constitutional meaning, integrated national police. So I would suggest that if the authors are agreeable, we put their UP Campus Security Group, or this other nomenclature, but not police. We cannot have a police force in a campus, even if it's UP. So that's one. Number two, he has a very good point that he would not be able to answer directly what are these constitutional issues, because Attorney Daanoy has not said it. So therefore, I would like to ask Attorney, because we would like to act on this now, Mr. Chairman, and on this bill. And it's very, very important that we uphold academic freedom. And so I'd like to ask Attorney Daanoy, being a lawyer himself, a mean lawyer at that, what are the constitutional infirmities that you have mentioned? Point to us. We are going to put on the screen the bill, the provisions, and may we see what are, so that will be guided already, Mr. Chairman. What are these from the very in seriatim, from 11A to G? What are the constitutional infirmities? That's very, very important.
Yes, Attorney Daanoy, would you like to answer the question? I think this is very important to us.
Mr. Chair, simple lang naman Mr. Chair Pag nag-issue ng warrant of arrest ng judge, kailangan pa ba maraming conditions for its implementation? The rules of procedure, especially a judicial procedure, ang issuance ng rules is that is vested with the Supreme Court according to the Philippine Constitution. Hindi ka pwede magpasa ng batas providing limitations or mga conditions sa especially in the enforcement of warrant of arrest, because this is purely vested with the Supreme Court. Well, isa sa mga punto ito because previously ang Solicitor General na nag-declare na may reservation sila dito, especially sa accord na ito. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chair, I would like to inform you, at the time of the signing of this agreement, nandiyan na ako I was the special counsel to the Secretary of National Defense, Fidel Ramos. Actually, during the signing of this agreement, against ang Department of National Defense dito. But because, Mr. Chair, tingnan yung last paragraph ng agreement na yan. May insert na provision doon, which states, nothing herein shall be construed as a prohibition against the enforcement of the laws of the land. Doon nag-agree kami, Mr. Chair. Nothing herein shall be construed as a prohibition against the enforcement of the laws of the land. So I mean to say, despite this, we are not prohibited from enforcing whatever for the purpose of enforcing the laws of the land. So ito ang nag-isa nakikita namin dito, maraming limitations as to the implementation of, say, like court orders, subject to may mga conditions pa. This is not allowed by the rules of court. Rules of procedure can only be issued by the Supreme Court, not by Congress, Mr. Chair. Kaya itong nakikitang infirmity, constitutional issue. Can we provide by law adding conditions to the enforcement of a judicial order? Yun ang tanong ko, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Kong Rufus. Yes, Rufus.
So, Mr. Chair, there is only one focus of it is not infirmities, but one infirmity that he is alleging. And can we now focus on this particular, on the warrant of arrest? Can we have that on the screen? Because then
that is on section 11C.
Yeah, can we put that on the screen, Mr. Chairman, so that we can...
Yes, Melanie, can you put that on the screen? It says here, the service of search or arrest warrants within the territorial jurisdiction of any UP campus or on any UP student facility, faculty, employee, or invited participants in any activities in UP as far as practicable shall be done after notification is given to the UP President or the Chancellor of the constituent university or Dean of the college concerned or the respective officers in charge. In the event of their absence, the same requirement of notification applies to any oral or written invitation for questioning or similar purposes.
Mr. Chairman, I do not see a constitutional infirmity. This is just a matter of notification because we have constitutional also provisions on academic freedom. Well, it's true that there can be, the rules of court are there, but certainly in the protection of academic freedom enshrined in the Constitution, we can provide that they will be notified. It's a procedural thing that could be done. Now, if they question this, Mr. Chairman, then they go to court. Then they will be shown that they themselves have agreed on this before, that they will be unstoppable because they had signed this no less than President Fidel Ramos when he was DND chief, Mr. Chairman. And so therefore a notification requirement in view of the strong constitutional provisions on academic freedom, which was also enlarged and clearly stated in the case of Pimentel, because before Pimentel versus Legal Education Board, where all of these requirements of the Legal Education Board, PhilSat, the requirement of that they will set the academic standards and qualifications of deans and law professors, they were declared unconstitutional because of the very important academic freedom as stated in Pimentel versus Legal Education Board. And so, Mr. Chairman, I believe that the concern of Attorney Daanoy, well, of course, he will interpret it that way, but the way I see this is a proper area that we can be able to approve to be able to also uphold the academic freedom given by our Constitution. And so therefore, Mr. Chairman, I would believe that we should now be able to approve this particular bill of the pending substitute bill, Mr. Chairman. I now move for its approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just before we finally approve the bill, I worked for a private company before I became a congressman. And if there is a search warrant issued to an employee, normally the warrant officer goes first to management, so that they will be given permission to enter the the organization. I think this is a similar probably example that prior to serving the warrant, you just have as a courtesy to go to the head of the university, the college, or the constituent unit. So I don't see also any infirmity in this particular provision. But if the Honorable Norman Daanoy would like to question this, he can question this before the Supreme Court once we approve it, Mr. D.S. Rupos. So anyway, any other comment? So we will incorporate the suggestions of Attorney Teodorte on the UP Staff Regent, the Vice Chancellor for Community Relations, including the name of the UP Police. Instead of UP Police, it should be UP Campus Group, Campus Security Group.
Yeah.
So that it will not be perceived or probably misinterpreted by any institution. Okay, so plus of course we will include the subject to, as far as exerting every effort to ensure compliance with the provisions of this act. We will limit it to this particular provision, And at the same time, we will not include the penal provision on this, but we will include administrative penalty that will be imposed. Is that okay with the rest?
Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Mr.
I
Chair.
support the proposed amendments as well. Thank you.
Okay, before we continue, I would like to recognize first our good friend from Cagayan, Congressman Joseph Lara. Congressman Joseph Lara. Okay, so, DS Rupus, would you like to reiterate your motion?
Yes, I am honored to reiterate my motion to approve the substitute bill as amended by the with the proposed amendments. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Subject to style
Second.
also.
Subject to
Second the motion,
Second,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
And the
Okay.
motion, Mr. Chair.
So there is a motion duly seconded that we approve the unnumbered substitute bill in substitution of House Bills 8437, 8514, and 8545, including the committee report that will be submitted to the Committee on Rules.
Yes, including the committee report, Mr. Chairman, as also a motion to approve such.
Okay, hearing no objection on the motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and
Thank you.
DS Rufus.
Maraming salamat, Chair and DS.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to the other items in the agenda. Now we will go to the next bill, the last bill. This is the substitute bill to House Bills 2737 and 3237, an act strengthening the Mindanao State University system and appropriating funds therefore, by Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez and of course Representative Abdullah de Maporo and Representative Khalid